Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So we did it. 5,000 subscribers. I cannot believe the Uneducated Economist has hit 5,000 subscribers. It's just unreal to me. I never, I never expected this when I started this channel. I really honestly was just looking for a handful of people to talk economics with because most people would roll their eyes at me. My family would just smile and nod, and they knew I was into this stuff, but they just listened to me too many times just babble along. And when I started this channel, like I said, I was just looking for a handful of people to maybe, talk economics with. And the channel just really started growing about a year ago. Now, it's been out for a couple of years, but really about a year ago is when it started taking off. And I started getting more and more subscribers. And, when I hit that 1,000 subscriber, I was like, wow, 1,000 people. And I was just like, I cannot believe 1,000 people want to listen to the opinions of the uneducated economist. And so I knew then, I was like, okay, well, you just got to keep doing this. You can't stop. You got to keep moving, keep making videos, and, just keep listening to the community, just listening to what the people say in the comments, listen to their advice, what they like about the videos, what they don't like. And, you know, I've learned an insane amount. I cannot believe how much I have taken in over the last year. I look back to like a couple of years ago and what I knew about the economy then, because I thought I knew a lot. And now it's just like I didn't know anything. I was just barely scratching the surface. And I still feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface. I feel like I'm just now really starting to be able to, kind of take things back. Because really, you got to know a lot about history. You got to know a lot about monetary history in order to kind of understand what the future monetary is going to be like, future monetary policies and stuff. And, this channel has really helped. I've learned so much from the community. I mean, the comments, I live for them. When I put out a video, I live to see what the comments are going to say, and I appreciate it, guys. So thank you. If you're new to the channel, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. Can't wait to see what you have to say in the comments. All right. Saw a couple of really good interviews over the weekend. One of them was with Mohammed El-Erian, and now this one was really good because he was talking about how the Federal Reserve has pretty much inflated asset prices and given everybody the wealth effect, which means that if the stocks, bonds, real estate, all that goes up, even if you don't cash it out, you have this kind of idea that it's like, hey man, I got money in my pocket because I got like this big portfolio that's really kicking ass behind me. It kind of gives you this idea that you can go off and spend your money into the economy. When you do that, businesses start investing into their own, business to try and expand and grow, and that's how the economy kind of booms. Now, what he is saying is that the economy has relied too much on central banks' intervention. Okay. Now, if you think about it, the Federal Reserve right now is injecting mass amounts of liquidity into the markets to keep the interest rates low. Now, if they didn't do this, interest rates would start going up. And if interest rates went up, asset prices would start coming down, especially in the real estate market. So the Federal Reserve is really trying hard to keep these interest rates low. Now, the problem is that every time they go to juice the economy, the juice is less effective. So this is what they mean by kind of pushing on a string, is that even though they do all this monetary injection, it's really not as effective as it once was because of how big it's gotten. So now the way he kind of really, described it is that asset prices are way up here and fundamentals are way down here. And if the Fed tries to do more, the asset prices get even farther away from the fundamentals. And that at some point, there's going to have to be a return back, right? And I think the way he put it is that at some point we need to transition and hand off the economy to the drivers of economic growth. Now, I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but I would imagine that it would have to go somewhere into like, you know, um, internal infrastructure stuff, right? Anything that has to do with construction or manufacturing within the United States, that would be like economic growth, drivers of economic growth, okay? Right now, since we're such a consumer-based, debt-based economy that, it's really, you just listen to it, how is the consumer doing? How are we doing on Black Friday? How are we doing on Christmas? How are we doing all these times that a consumer is going out there to buy? And then how much available credit do they have? How much access to the credit they have? And how low of interest they have? None of that is going to last. Eventually, at some point, they're going to say, okay, well, how much have you produced? Okay, what have you produced? in order to acquire a real good. So you produce something and then you trade it for something that's valuable. Okay, does that make sense? But if you're just nothing but a consumer base, it's just a matter of how much debt you have access to and how many different things that you can buy. The other article, or not the article, interview with Jeffery Glundlach. This one was really good too because he mentioned two things in there that I thought were quite interesting. One of them is that he talked about the inverted yield curve, and that the inverted yield curve is not necessarily the indicator of a recession, but it's when the inverted yield curve uninverts or de-inverts or whatever, becomes normal. All right. And so like a normal yield curve, you have short-term interest rates paying less than long-term interest rates. But during an inversion, you got short-term interest rates paying out higher interest rate than long-term. So once this thing kind of corrects itself, that's the indicator, or more the indicator, of when the recession kicks in. Now, if you go back and you look at recession on a chart, like all the different recessions with the inverted yield curve, you'll notice that the 2-year, 10-year inversion happens just before the recession, but it corrects itself right before the recession. And because the way he explains it is pretty good. It's because pretty much the Federal Reserve is engaging, right? So like the yield curve inverts, the Federal Reserve steps in, starts doing stuff with monetary policy, lowers interest rates to try and get this thing to correct itself. It does correct itself, but by this time, the recession is already starting to kick in. Okay. Now, obviously, the Fed is trying to save the day by doing that, but regardless if they do it or don't, that's the effort that they're trying to put in. Now, the other part of this article, I keep saying article, this interview, it comes in at about 10 minutes, and he's talking about Trump's strategy with these tariffs, and I kind of thought about that, but not quite the way that he said it, and he goes like this. Trump has really been trying to get the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. Okay, but he has a hard time with it. They don't want to listen to him, and he's screaming and yelling and tweeting and all about it, right? So he starts pushing in these tariffs, slowing the economy down, forcing the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, kind of getting his way. And you think about it, since it's lagged, right? And this is the way Jeffrey kind of put it. Since there's a lag to these lowering of interest rates, meaning that the Fed lowers them today, they don't take effect immediately. It goes down 6 months down the road or whatever. So really, these lowering of interest rates have this lag time to it. So really, this lag time might actually be kicking in right around the 2020 mark. And then even on top of that, he has inflicted these tariffs. He can always take those tariffs off the table. And this too would create like a short-term stimulus, as these cheaper products would come into the country, giving people better prices to pay, but be able to buy more stuff, have more money to spend. Kind of makes sense? So that was kind of an interesting perspective. I never really thought about it. And even he said it would be a diabolical way of going about it. But, truth is stranger than fiction most of the time. So I wouldn't put it past him at all. Yeah. Uneducated economist. You guys let me know.